Hi, this is Taylor Moore, and you're watching the Crew Reviews.
Hey guys, look who's back. Taylor
What?
Moore,
Who let him in the
book number
house?
3. Welcome back, sir.
I told security to
Glad to
keep
be
him
back.
out.
Cheers,
You
brother.
can't
Cheers.
stop me, man.
I know. Sneaky bastard.
Well, hey, we're book 3, Ricochet. Great title, great book.
Yeah.
So, can you give our readers a quick glimpse of what's in store this time around the West Texas landscape for Garrett Kohl and Company?
First of all, I got to say, I don't even have a hard copy yet, and somehow you have one, so
Oh
it's
my
not
God, dude.
fair.
We
I'm
know
smart.
it's-
You all have hard copies. I
It's
don't have
nice.
any. So yeah, the writer's always the last to be taken
I'll
care of,
sell
I
you my
guess, but-
copy.
Yeah, sure. Put it on eBay. I'll jump
I'll
on.
even sign it.
Just a bottle of Still Austin whiskey, you know.
There you go.
Have you seen the back? I mean, there's some good quotes on here. Some nice
Yeah,
portraits.
I know the quotes, but I haven't seen them all together like that.
Looks
So
good.
I'm excited. I'm glad you guys got the sneak peek that I haven't seen yet. So no, great stuff for Garrett. You know what? This is book 3. I'm as I mentioned earlier before we start, I'm starting on book 4, so I'm going to try to back up a little bit and get back into Ricochet. But when we left off in Firestorm, you know, as I write my books, I always like to wrap up the immediate things and then sort of leave a few things hanging. And so with Garrett, you know, the last we left him, this poor guy, he just wants to get back into a normal life. He's still with the DEA. He's taken a leave of absence, just trying to get his life together, try to get things back going on the ranch. But trouble always seems to find him, no matter how much he tries to stay away. And so that's what's happened in this one. And basically, he gets a call about somebody who's has this problem. He doesn't really know what it is. He just knows that, you know, somebody says you're one of the people that can solve it. And what happens is he meets with a guy who is being blackmailed, who works at a nuclear weapons facility. And this for people who think this is exaggerated and outrageous, there's the Pantex plant here in the Texas Panhandle where it's the only assembly and disassembly facility in the United States for nuclear weapons. So you can imagine the level of security, the former operators, all the people that are here protecting that plant. Literally the most destructive weapons on earth are right here in the Texas Panhandle. And as it happens in the book, they're actually really near where I have the ranch in the book. And so obviously this is going to be of concern to Garrett. Nuclear weapons on the loose could be a bad idea. And so he does what he can to sort of facilitate, you know, to sort of hand over this problem to someone who's really more geared for it. And but unfortunately for Garrett, things just start spiraling out of control all too fast. And because he doesn't have his, you know, his team of CIA, you know, paramilitary guys, all those people that he can depend on, he has to just round up the people that he can find, and includes a couple of ex-convicts and a kind of a drunk barman, helicopter pilot, and a few others to help get the job done. So as always, I love to take this sort of, you know, for people that know the series, it's a modern Western, but it's also got international intrigue. And so I throw that all together once again in a really fun way. And the thing that I really bring, I think, to the forefront, you know, in every book, I like to take something from the Old West and flash it forward a little bit. And in this book, it's the train. And this is, again, that people are going to think I'm wacko writing this stuff. There used to be, and some people probably know this, there was what they call the white train. And nuclear weapons in the United States, they have to get to and from these military bases, and where they're, where they have them somewhere or another. Well, they used to use a train, and it was kind of like the old, when you think of the old Wild West with the old armored rail car with the gun turrets and everything. It was just a modern version of that. And that ran up until the 1980s, and eventually shut that program down and started using semis. But I started looking into that program, and it looked like there's a lot of problems with that, just with maintenance of these things. And it's just a horrible lifestyle for these guys that have to like ride shotgun literally with these nuclear weapons all over the country. So the premise behind this is that they started using the white train again, although they were doing it in secret, kind of hiding in plain sight. And I don't want to give too much
Yeah.
away, but people I think can put their imagination together as to what kind of situation can unfold from there. And of course, as the book, I have the bullets and bombs and all the wild excitement, but then there's the family drama going on too. So for people that read Downrange and Firestorm, know that there's a love interest involved. There's a child that Garrett has adopted, and there's all sorts of just family drama that's unfolding. The ranch is in peril, and he's trying to get that, righted again. And so I go through a pretty interesting character arc on this one. People have sort of grown with Garrett and seen him sort of step away from that role where he's deep cover and doing these DEA operations, and kind of trying to move from that life just to be a dad and hopefully be a husband one day. And so all that stuff is sort of being unpacked as we go. But he gets to a point, and again, I never want to give too much away, but he has to start making some hard decisions, and it's things that he probably wouldn't have done in the past, but necessity is leading him to a certain direction. And I'll just leave it at that, because I think it makes for some fun twists and turns in terms of character development. But that's what you have in Ricochet. And then of course, I'll leave that with people are going to be itching for book 4, because I leave a few little I wrap up some things and I leave a few things hanging. So it's I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool.
Well, it was a lot of fun. It's a great deal of fun. And you kind of touched upon this just a second ago. So this plot is a bit more expansive because of the nature of the threat than the previous 2 books, in my opinion. And in fact, I feel like your world building has just grown incrementally with each book. So there's 2 questions to that. Is this an intentional escalation or just due to this particular spark of inspiration? And the second part is, how do you preserve the intimate portrait you continue to paint of Garrett's life within this larger canvas?
So it's a great question, because it gets exponentially more complicated for me as the writer as that world grows. But what I've kind of learned is, and a lot of this is from reader feedback, that they'll say like, "Oh, I love this character. I want to see more of that character." And one of my favorite stories is from my first editor, David Highfield, legend in the business, started Jack Reacher,
Right.
and I remember him. I ended up. I don't want to give too much away for people who haven't read the series, but there's one character that I really expanded. And he goes, "Oh man," he goes, I didn't think that was going to work, but it did. I really like that guy." And I was kind of like, "Well, why didn't you tell me that? You should have said something if you didn't think it was going to work." But that's editors, they give their writers a lot of creative liberty, and he did. And when I mentioned that I was going to do that, he could have said no, don't do it, but he said, "Let's see where this goes," and he was really happy with it. And so I think that's fun. I've always wanted, when I write and I get into different points of view, I've always, we've all read books where you're reading like the protagonist and you really like his storyline, but then you might switch over to someone else and you're kind of like, "Oh, let me kind of skim through this so I can get back to the storyline that I'm liking or more interested in." My goal has always been to have, sort of B plots that are just as interesting as the protagonist, his storyline. So far, I've at least had good feedback that people are liking what the other characters are doing, what's going on in their lives, and how it sort of intersects with Garrett. And so that's what I'm trying to do, and it is growing, and it is getting interesting. And I tell people all the time, pay attention to each character in the book. I might mention a name one time, and in book 4, that person becomes a major character. You will have heard of them, you will be aware of them, but you won't know anything about them. But they might become a major character and very influential in what's going to happen in a book 2, book 3, book 4, 5, 6, or whatever. So anyhow, I have a lot of fun. For me as a writer, it's fun to do that because it kind of keeps me guessing too as the story grows, and but it becomes that much more complicated as you bring all these things back together. And I always like to say, when I'm writing these books, I'm having so much fun creating all this disaster and calamity and drama for everyone. And then I get to the last quarter or towards the end when I'm trying to wrap it up, I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do here? Why did I do this?"
100-page wrap.
Yeah, so you have to bring everything back together in hopefully a meaningful way, but also a realistic way, that so somebody doesn't like shake their head and go, "That's dumb," or "That's ridiculous," or whatever. But when it does happen in a meaningful way and these worlds intersect once again, that people are like, "Oh, I didn't see that all coming together," but it was done in a satisfying way for the reader.
You do a great job of tying up all those ends in all of your books. But in Ricochet, your writing features thrilling action sequences, high speed chases, the gun battles, tense confrontations. These scenes from flash floods to assassination attempts, they truly captivate the readers. As a thriller author, do you plan out these predetermined number of these intense moments and build the story around them, or do they organically arise as you develop the plot?
No, every time I write a book, I say I'm not going to do that again because it's horrible. It's horrible to write all these action scenes. They're hard because that's the hardest. If I'm doing dialogue or whatever, I can just bust those things out and it's no problem. But when I do these intense action scenes, it has to be so visual for the reader. Oh, it's a miserable process. And I did that in Downrange, the first book, and I finished. I was like, well, I learned a lesson. Well, apparently I didn't, because
No.
I do it in every book, and I'm almost done with book 4, and it's got all these intense action scenes that but that's the kind of thing that I like from books to film. You know, like what I always tell people, I see things in terms as I'm writing, as I'm watching it on like a series. My favorite is or one of my favorites is Narcos and Narcos Mexico. We have these multiple scenes playing out at any given time, and they're, like you can see it from the bad guy, you can see it from the good guy, you can see all these different perspectives, and as the watcher, don't go behind that door. There's bad guys there. They're going to kill you, and I love to paint that as I'm writing, but it's hard. But so no, I don't really plan it. But then I just have these ideas, and I think this would be really cool to show a reader, like, a flash flood or a wildfire, or or a blizzard or something wild that maybe they've never seen, and make those characters go through that scene.
Love it.
Well, without telling any spoilers, then, like, you're coming up with these kind of organically. What in Ricochet was probably maybe your favorite that just kind of came, we always say it came out of nowhere. Obviously we know where it came from, but sometimes even the writer's like, holy crap, I can't believe I just came, like, I wasn't even conscious of that I was writing this. Did you have any moments like that in Ricochet?
So one of the kind of interesting things about Ricochet is the flash flood. I experienced that as a kid. Growing up, I grew up on a farm and ranch, and in Texas, and I grew up right on the Brazos River, and so it was this 100-year floodplain. So it really wasn't a flash flood. I mean, you kind of knew it was coming, but it wasn't really like what you think. It wasn't like the river coming out of its banks.
Right.
What happens is everything backs up, and it backs up around you, and it's this really crazy thing. And so we always had cattle growing up. I remember herding cattle by boat, and we had a cattle in this pasture we call the hole, because it was lower, it was right on the river. But it was the craziest thing. You'd drive by and they found this knoll, but they were standing in water, so it looked like they were literally walking on water, like on top of a lake.
That's cool.
But they were just stuck there, and eventually something bad was gonna happen. So we had to get out in boats and literally herd these cattle back to shore.
How do you prod cattle through water?
It was not easy. They don't want to go. They're obviously scared. You just like get up and you just start getting them moving. And once one goes, then the rest of them follow. And they want out of there. They're just scared.
You just don't know when.
And so I don't, again, not to give anything away, but I remember my dad, there was a calf that started drowning, and he just reaches down into the water and pulls it up in the boat and just grabs
Marlboro
the
Man.
boat with us.
That's right.
Yeah. There's some things in the book that that played out in real life for me. And so to me, it was fun to sort of relive that in my mind, even though it was, it's kind of a hair-raising thing when you're doing it. It's fun to sort of relive it, and years later, and try to put the reader in the space of that character. And that happens up here. And I remember moving up to the Texas High Plains. It's kind of like a desert up here. And I remember when I was doing the oil and gas stuff, I went out and talked to this old rancher, and he's like, don't put that, that well there, that oil well, because it's going to, one day this is going to flood. And I remember, like, I didn't say anything. I was like, that guy's crazy, man. This is never going to flood here. And it did, man. It flooded, and it just like took everything out. And it was one of those flash floods, like I write in the book. So I've seen that firsthand up here, and it's scary. People do die. It's dangerous. And it's life threatening. And, but as far as putting it in the book, it was just too wild of a scene not to add into a great thriller that's on the high plains.
Yeah.
Well, Taylor, you managed to enter a crowded space in the genre, but till fresh ground, both through the uniqueness of the West Texas geography and the culture, and the traits in the background that you've infused into Garrett Kohl. But do you monitor the landscape, whether it be the plots or types of characters in the marketplace, to kind of ensure that you continue to differentiate your novels?
So that's a great question, and it's one of those that yes and no, I guess. For for a while, I kind of went through that phase where I said, I'm not going to read any thrillers because I don't want to copy anyone, or I don't want to do anything. And just the other day I was talking to someone, I had this idea and they're like, oh yeah, Jack Carr does that. Jack Carr does. I was like, I don't want to hear that. So it can be frustrating when you have this idea and you think it's unique, and it's not. But I think at some point things are just going to get done, or a character is going to get used and they're going to be similar. The longer I do this, the more I just don't care. And I don't mean it like I don't care like I'm copying someone. It's just, you'll drive yourself crazy if you're trying to never ever do it. But that is the one good thing about Garrett Kohl. If there is someone out there like him, a protagonist, I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen anything on the high plains. And having this sort of Wild West DEA cowboy is just kind of a fun thing. That's a special ops guy, and also too, and this goes back to David Highfield. When I started writing this series, he said, we're going to call it a Garrett Kohl novel. We're not going to call it a Garrett Kohl thriller because it's more than that. It's got that family drama. It's got that emotion and heart-wrenching scenes at times, and funny, comedy stuff that that not necessarily doesn't exist in thriller in the genre, but it was kind of its own unique thing. And I think at some point I just had to, sometimes you just got to just do your own thing and hope it works. But the temptation is to look at a Jack Carr, Brad Thor, Vince Flynn, look at some of these guys, or Don Bentley, whoever. There's so many guys that are doing it so well, but so you want to be like, well, I should just do what they're doing because people love it. But at the end of the day, I think it's better if you just sort of carve out your own territory, and I think I did that with the Texas High Plains, at least for now.
Right.
I think so. We read anything in the
Nothing.
Panhandle, High Plains? You're the only guy writing that I know of, and we read a shit ton of books about it. Thrillers and stuff. So you write familiar, like it's a thriller, but it's also very unique. And then you also do the intricate character dynamics, specifically in Ricochet. You skillfully address the father and son relationship between Garrett and his adopted son. Your unique take on this trope using bullies, and I don't want to give spoilers away, adds depth to this exploration. So could you elaborate on your approach and the themes you intended to convey through that dynamic?
Yeah, so here's what I always say. Like, and there's a lot of things when I started writing a series, I wanted to do a little bit different than some of the ones that are out there, and not necessarily that makes us better. But what I always said was that most thriller novels are not relatable to most people. So like you have this like special ops guy or whatever who's super talented and great and can do backflips while he's shooting the bad guys, and that's fun, and I like reading that, but it's not relatable. Having cartel sicarios, which are in my book, try to murder you, hopefully is not relatable to most people. But family drama is, being estranged from a loved one because you had this falling out at some point. I think a lot of people have been through that, running into an old high school flame after years of someone that you really or a high school crush, in Garrett's case, that's relatable. Trying to maybe save a dying business and really get back to your core, your roots, and trying to balance out what you love as a career, because Garrett loves what he's doing, but at the same time there's those ties, those cultural ties. So I use a lot of nostalgia and family dynamics that I put in the book that I think are relatable. If it's not, I know not everybody has a ranch they're trying to save, but I think I think nostalgia, and I think that sort of that internal drive to maybe hold on to something culturally that's important to you. Somebody can can hold on to that in themselves and be like, that's like me with this. They might not even know what that is, but I think everybody can relate to it. So I try to make relatable things happen to the characters, like the bully incident. If nobody's ever had a bully, they've encountered something like it, like something where you felt like you had to stand up for something, but you were scared. And so I think that's relatable. And with Asadi, a lot of my childhood goes into him, even when he's first learning in downrange, how to ride horses and do all these things. He didn't want to embarrass himself. And I remember, as a kid being with the Cowboys, and the last thing I wanted to do was embarrass myself. And so having that angst and that drive to do a good job, so your dad or whoever would be like, well done, when you're out on the ranch. I try to infuse all that in the book because I think it makes the characters more relatable, and I think I think people tend, at least what I hear from readers, is that they have gravitated to these characters for those very reasons.
Definitely.
Yeah. This is kind of this is a good segue point. That I think that's kind of an important thing for us to talk about, is that the three of us, we've always had this idea that you have a real strong thematic element to your books. So when you're in that creative process, what's the relationship between story and theme? Are you creating a plot and then exploring the theme around it, or are you doing it vice versa, where you start with, the plot? Well, vice
Yeah.
versa. You know what I'm saying, right?
So it's a really strange thing. And what I do, and I know this sounds odd, I start with a concept. And it's usually something that I think is interesting to me. So like in the first book, it's like, we talk about the cartels. And I thought, I always like this concept of like, what if you took this like Green Beret special ops guy who's a cowboy and he's on horseback with a AR-15 and he goes against these cartel guys? Like, what would happen? Like, how would he match up against some guys that are pretty trained killers and bad, but he's pretty bad himself when he wants to be? What would that look like? How would that play out? Like like when you think of it cinematically, how would that look? And so again, I talk about, I think of like, how would this look in a movie or a series? And so I think, cinematic. And so I have this sort of cinematic vision of what I want to play out. And so look in Ricochet, we talk about the, I mentioned I go with the train thing because it's an Old West theme in the modern era. And I think, what would that look like? The Old West, like Butch Cassidy and Sundance theme playing out in the modern era. So I know it sounds odd, but I take sort of a concept and I build a story around that. And the good news is everybody's got their, B plots going on, their subplots, to the story. So that just sort of naturally gravitates in. But for me, it's all about a concept of what I think would look cool and what I think would be original to readers. I like to put something out there and they go, well, I've never seen that before. I've never, so for me, that's the fun. If I can bring something fresh to the table, that's what I want to do.
I've never seen an Iranian boy learn how to rope on young kid. Right.
Well, I mean, there's probably one out there. I've never.
There's got to be, yeah, but but like
maybe Asadi's the first.
But yeah, it's not who I think of, right? And so but it's interesting.
Well, and that's what I like to do too. I like to defy expectations because I think that, and not in a weird political way. I think it's fun to put people in a dynamic that you wouldn't expect them to be in and let them do something different. And that's another thing I want to do as a writer is not write things that are a bit like more cliche, if you know what I mean. And not that it's always cliche, but maybe it's expected. I want to defy expectations. I want people to see like, what's this guy going to do? Like, how is this guy going to manage? And so again, Garrett's sort of fish out of water. He's, as the series starts out, he's this DEA guy, black and white, cowboy, right and wrong. And I throw him into the gray world of the CIA. Like, let's see how he operates there, because that's not his world. He is law and order, black and white, ranch boy, farm boy kind of guy. Let's put him in a gray world and see what happens. So, with Asadi, let's take him out of his element, put him on a Texas ranch and see what happens. And to me, it's fun to watch them have those obstacles and overcome the obstacles. And I don't know, to me, that makes it fun and interesting.
It's definitely fun. We definitely fun. And we hate cliches. Like, passionately.
Yeah, I mean, if you can avoid them, why not, right? And just do something different and fun and cool.
You can avoid them if you put some effort into it.
Yeah, not even that much effort.
Yeah. So that's what I try to do. Hopefully it resonates.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a way of segueing to my thoughts. Earlier, you mentioned sort of some of the Western symbolism that is in this. The types of stories you're writing are in line with the type of Western mythos that has kind of been experiencing a bit of a renaissance, whether it's CJ Box or our friend Mark Cameron's Arliss Cutter series. Sort of a modern cowboy tale with the raw and unforgiving nature and the principled man standing up against the odds and kind of a perpetual high noon, I guess. Have you taken any time to consider why these stories are resonating so strongly right now?
It's a great question. And no, I haven't thought about it. I don't really know why they are resonating. Partially it could have been because of COVID. There was this sort of, everybody was sort of hemmed in for a while. And especially if you're in a city, you're sort of locked down. I think a lot of people are really yearning for this like wide open spaces.
Oh my God.
And that was,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? That was the
Right.
great thing about living on the Texas Plains. I'm still in a city, but I mean, it's just still pretty wide open here. So during COVID, it wasn't like you didn't notice it, but I don't think it was like being in New York or Los Angeles or somewhere where you're really, things are locked down.
10 feet
Yeah,
away. It's yeah.
yeah, here everything was still wide open and free, and you could get out and breathe and feel fine. And you know, maybe partially it's that, but you know, I know that all the Yellowstone, all that came beforehand. I don't know. It's a great question. It's one that I should probably consider a little bit more. You know, but I think Garrett, you know, I want to portray that sometimes you get there is a sort of stereotype of this cowboy who's sort of unfeeling and doesn't, you know, has, you know, he's out riding fences or whatever, whatever, how the Desperado song goes. But you know, with Garrett, he is a little bit of a desperado, but he's got a kind heart. He's a good person, and he longs for, you know, he doesn't even realize how much he longs for family and relationships and those kind of things. So um, I think those stories resonate with people, and I think people secretly sort of root for them to come home and to settle down and find that. And I think that's what's been kind of fun about Garrett.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you know Chuck Wendig. He's a New York Times bestseller, and so he recently shared his thoughts on writing a series versus standalones in his newsletter. He highlighted the challenges of writing series, such as diminishing returns and reduced publisher support for sequels. He also mentioned that standalones offer new opportunities for rights and discoverability. With this in mind, would you share your perspective on writing a series, especially as you're promoting the third book in a series?
Yeah.
How do you balance the benefits of a series in terms of building a solid relationship with the potential challenges?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's not as if, you know, sometimes I do think, man, it would be fun to do a standalone just to kind of mix it up and do something different, and maybe I will. As far as I know, my publisher is interested, and you know, the last I'd heard, it's like, let's just keep them coming, you know, and I
That's
like what
great.
CJ. Yeah, right, and we'll see if that's what they said, but I've got plenty of ideas and places to take these characters. And CJ Box was a huge influence on me, or is a
Yeah.
huge influence on me, for obvious reasons. You can probably see some of the similarities in how I try to write my stories. They're very different. There's very different protagonists and different storylines, but I like what he does. I like the fact that he, you know, when you start the Joe Pickett, I mean, his kids are like infants or something, and now they're
grow
out
up.
of college, and so I've followed them this whole way. I want to see what those girls are doing. I want to
Yeah.
follow and see what's happening in their lives. And so I think that's the benefit, is that when people like the characters, they become best friends. You know, they really become people you want to see. You want to see what they're going to do. And I've heard people, you know, tell me about my book with Asadi, the kid. They're like, I want to see what he grows up to be. I want to see the kind of man he becomes. And so hopefully the series will keep going that so long that people will see him become a man. And he is becoming a man. As I'm writing book 4, it's, you know, more and more it starts developing into a different person and coming into his own. And so to me, that's fun. I think that's the fun part of a series. If people like it, they know what to expect. I try to write a bit formulaic. I know it probably sounds funny, but not in a bad, predictable way. But I think kind of like what CJ Box does with his Joe Pickett. You know, you kind of know what you're going to get, and what I get out of his novels is what I want. I like that, and so I try to keep them about the same, you know, length and you know, kind of just keep gravitating. You know, just kind of keep the story moving along. And again, there's twists and turns, so it's not getting boring. So people are like, oh no, now what are they going to do? Well, now what's going to happen? What is this character going to, how did they have a falling out? You know, that kind of a thing. So there's a little soap opera going along with it. But I like the series. The standalone, I know I've heard the same thing from some people, that publishers aren't really interested in a series anymore. I find that hard to believe, because well, you know, for like a CJ Box, I would find it hard to believe that people aren't interested in keeping that thing going as long as possible, or Jack Reacher or whatever, you know. I mean, so I think if it works and it's and people are buying it, I think that's okay. I think if it's sort of limping along, maybe it's like, let's try something else, let's try something new. But I'd be happy I'll write down ideas for standalone novels. And
do you have ideas of like standalone, like switching genres? Would you be writing like, I don't know,
Romance?
rom-coms? Yeah, rom-coms.
So you know, the funny thing is the first couple of books that I wrote just when I was writing for fun were young adult. So I think young adult is really where like my passion probably was. I was just trying to write the books that I would have wanted to have read when I was a kid.
Mm.
And so that's what I started doing. I think they're really fun and they're still out there. So maybe at some point I'll polish them off and try my hand at that. I'd like to try maybe a little more, slightly more literary, not super literary, but kind of what David McCloskey does. David's a friend of mine, and Damascus Station
Yeah, that was an awesome book.
was just, it was just phenomenal. I tell people all the time, I said, if you want to really know what the CIA is like, read Damascus Station. Because that's about as real as it gets. And of course, he was CIA, and we were there at the same time. I didn't know him when I was there, but we worked on a lot of the same stuff. So I would try. There's something I worked on at the agency that I would like to write, kind of more like a Damascus Station about this particular event that I was a part of. So that, of course, involved, you know, I wouldn't do it. I'd go to the agency and say, like, hey, I really want to tell this story right. You know, I want to work with you to get this story right. But it'd be more of a kind of a more serious, you know, spy novel. Versus, you know, mine now are fun. They're meant to be fun and over the top and exciting, but it'd be more like what McCloskey's doing with them. So it's slightly more literary, but not.
I'd read it.
Not too far. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
for sure.
Good. Yeah. So
send us a hard
like
copy before you get one, though.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I was gonna say, we'll take the ARC. No, I'm joking. I would definitely buy a copy.
Yeah. So
you know, we've got I don't know how many guys, but we've had a lot of authors, you know, really big names. And they wrote in both mediums, both novel and screenplay. And as we know, and maybe some of our viewers don't, but you know, you're heavily involved in the screenplay world as well. How does writing novels help you in screenplay mode? And how does writing screenplays help you in the novel mode?
That's a good question. That's a great question. I don't really know. I don't know how one helps you versus the other. I can tell you what I like about the different things, and maybe that will sort of help answer that question. What I do like about writing screenplays, and I usually write with partners, is that it's collaborative. When I'm writing novels, being a novelist is a lonely profession. I sit in this office, you know, maybe I get out to a coffee house or something, but for the most part, you're by yourself. And it's not that I don't use subject matter experts, but you know, that's like an hour here or there, like over the course of 9 months. But for the most part, you're writing by yourself. The screenplay thing is fun because, again, with me, I usually write with partners. So it's collaborative, and there's give and take, and you're having fun, and you're really like getting into the story together and saying, what about this? What about this? And the great thing about screenwriting is that you can just like bang out a scene in a really short amount of time, where like a real good chapter might take a few days. And it's just a slow process, and you can with screenwriting, you can just get your story out there. It's so nice. But with novel writing, what's cool is that it's your own. That is an entirely a world that you have created, and you spent, you know, for me, it's usually about 9 months writing that thing, and it's your ever living, you know, just your every waking moment is dedicated to that, and all your thoughts are into that thing. And so when a novel comes out, you're super proud of it because you put everything into it. Not that you're not proud of a screenplay too, but it's just it's not the labor of love that a novel is.
Well, do you find one more difficult than the other, or one more a little slightly more enjoyable than the other?
Novel writing is way harder. Yeah, way harder.
Lee Goldberg says that he likes to write a screenplay for like to see if it'll work as a novel, and then he turns it into a novel.
Man, hey, that's a wonderful idea. I hadn't thought about that, but a screenplay is very bare bones. I mean, it's like when you don't have to make it pretty. It's just man walks in a room, you know, recognizes like his friend, sits down at table, and then it's like real like cut bullet point, you know, like little like dialogue. That's not even like how they'd really say it. Almost, it's because, you know, a lot of that will be left to the actors, sort of, you know, interpret how they want to say it. But so no, it's a very good thing. But I like that idea of doing it to see if it works, because it's just bing bang boom. You're doing it. It's utilitarian, and there's software that formats it for you, and it's got its own challenges. I'm not saying it's easy.
It's tight
for people to. Yeah, it's tight. So I mean, it's got its own challenges in that there's no like, let me you know, give you 2 paragraphs about this, like set the stage here. It's like bam bam bam, and you better be very descriptive. And people that are good at it are really good at it, and I'm always amazed. but it's fun. I like it. It's just two different animals.
Yeah.
For me.
It really is. And you have to convey more with less in a screenplay. And then the other aspect is, and Taylor, you probably know this better than I do, but you can't you can't put too much in it because then you'll step on the director's toes, and that's that's verboten. So there's things you're restrained, and then with the novel you're just you're only restrained by yourself in that respect.
Yeah, everybody wants to get in those screenplays and go, the camera pans around, focuses in on the man. Nope, that's not what you do as a screenwriter. That is the director's version there.
Stay in your lane.
He will stay in your lane. He will decide all that stuff. So no, you got to be very careful, but I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? I just I like telling. I like storytelling. I like telling the story. Yeah. And if I could ever get, I don't claim to be a director. Don't want to be a director. I mean, to be cool. It's not that. I just don't. I think that's a real artist's gift. I mean, I think you paint things visually with the camera, and I think people that are good at that are trained and just that's what they do. And but when I see the work of a really good director, I'll see someone, I'll be like, man, I'd love that guy to tell my story. Like I recently saw The Covenant, Guy Ritchie's. Have you guys seen that yet? Just when I see how he did that, I was like, man, I could see Downrange or one of my things, playing out with like a Guy Ritchie sort of directing it, because it's hard, it's good scenes and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, so it's just fun. It's fun to think about who would do a good job with this.
Absolutely. Well, Taylor, you've once again survived the first part of the interview, the standard part of the interview on Ricochet. So
ain't over though.
Raise another glass to you and to Ricochet. It's a great book. This is Garrett's genuinely one of our favorite characters. And and like Mike said, the personal, the intimate, the thematic elements are what set this series apart. I mean, there's a lot of books you'll read, and as soon as you put it down, it's, oh, that was fun. It was popcorn and it was great. And that's the last time you'll ever think about it. It's easy when the next Garrett Kohl novel comes out, because I'm already like, well, what's going on with Asadi? What's going on with, it sticks. It sticks. And that tells me that you're doing something right. So,
well, thanks for saying all that. And I always like to tell people, it's not by accident. It's not because I'm so gifted. It is hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of going through it over and over again to get those scenes just right and to get that heart into the story. So it takes a lot of work. So I'm glad you guys appreciate it. I appreciate you saying that.
Cheers to that, brother. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. So here we are in the lightning round, and mine is going to be Western and Texas themed.
Okay.
First one is there are, with all the Western motifs in this, is there a historical Western figure, one single figure that you would love to go back and hang out and drink a beer with, interview, shoot targets with? Is there anybody in Western lore that stands above all others for you?
I tell you, there's a lot of them, but Kit Carson, I read a book about him called Blood and Thunder. And if anybody's into historical fiction, read that book. It reads like, I'm sorry, historical fiction. It's nonfiction. Yeah. It reads like fiction, is what I was trying to say. These are the guys like Kit Carson. Those mountain men were like the Navy SEALs of the day.
Yeah.
And they did things and survive things that mortals, I don't know. They're just a different breed of human, is all I can
more
tell
with
you.
less.
They were just.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So Kit Carson would be one of those guys that, I mean, he was just kind of a character too. I just love to like sit down and have a whiskey with that guy and be like, tell me some stories, man, because everything I've read about him is fascinating.
Yeah.
And just that, I don't want to say fearless. I mean, I'm sure they were afraid, but to go into hostile territory the way they did, oftentimes by themselves. I mean, I don't know how.
There's a chip missing.
There's a chip missing. I hate to say it, but there is a chip missing, man. Who would do that? I don't know. Yeah. Those guys did.
Most sane people know.
But we need people like that. You need people like that.
You do. You have to have those kind of guys, and so Kit Carson would be a fun one.
That's a great. Okay, number 2. What makes West Texas natives superior to the rest of the state's denizens?
Well, I wouldn't say they're superior, because I'm from Central Texas. So I've got
piss off his family.
Okay. I'm a Central Texas boy. But West Texas is cool, and it's a different. It's a different Texas. God, there's a movie out years ago. I'm blanking on the name, and it did such a good job of dividing Texas up. It was done by McConaughey, had Jack Black, and anyhow, here nor there. But anyhow, Texas is also different. Everybody's got their own personalities, but West Texas is cool, man. You know, a lot of these guys, these ranchers are kind of like Butch, you know, in the book series that
Yeah.
Garrett's dad, and they're just kind of stoic and kind of just characters, and just living out there kind of by themselves, living this hard life, and that's just how they roll. It's kind of like the Kit Carsons of the world. Some people just
Mhm.
choose that world, and
Yeah.
they do out here. So no, the West Texans are a lot of fun.
Do you know what I love about the relationship between him and his father though? Calls him
What's
daddy.
that?
Calls him
Yeah,
daddy. The grown man
yeah,
calls him daddy. And
yeah.
I can
It's
actually, as a grown man, I can relate to that. That's actually pretty cool.
yeah. It's a very Southern thing. It's a Texas thing. Not everybody does that, but a lot of people do, and so it's very Southern and very Texas. If you're, and it's kind of neat. Yeah, it's something about it that sort of is endearing,
Yeah, it's
and
very
I
endearing.
think it's fun
Yeah,
to
for
do.
Well, I
sure.
mean, no matter how much of a badass he is and how all around the world he's gone, he's still daddy. So I think
Still
that's
daddy.
Right.
Still calls him
Yeah.
daddy. Anyway.
all right.
Yeah.
My last question. You're interrogating a possible spy, and their legend or their backstory includes being born and raised in, we'll say Central Texas. I had West Texas written.
Okay, we can
Central
do
Texas.
both.
But what one question could you ask him to confirm the veracity of his claim that he's from Texas, Central Texas?
Oh my gosh. Maybe I would ask him about country music, and I'd say name your top five. And if it was all out of Nashville and nobody was from the state of Texas, then I'd be like, dude, you're not from here,
No.
man.
Yeah.
Try again.
I didn't say
Get a
George
rope.
Strait
Get
or
a
Marty
rope.
Robbins or
Speaking of country music,
if there's
have
no
you
Lyle Lovett or Robert O'Keen
well,
or
yeah,
something thrown in
Robert
there, then
O'Keen. There you go.
yeah, then I'd be like, yeah, we got a problem here, son.
they got some good country music here in Virginia. You hear that kid Oliver Anthony. Have you heard that
No, but
Richmond
no, write
north
that
of
down.
Richmond?
Yeah. Big
Okay.
It
redhead
went
guy.
viral. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, he's like the real deal, man. He's got
Yeah.
he's
some soul
legit.
to him, huh?
He's
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
legit.
it was like one day no one knew who this guy was, listening to any of his music, and the next day he had the top 5 songs in on iTunes and Apple.
And he's
Tunes,
turned down
whatever.
$1 million offers already because he's just like, that's not what I'm here about.
Is it
I'm
real?
like,
Did
Yeah,
he
you
really? That's crazy.
yes.
yeah.
I was
God
like,
Yeah, I've
damn.
seen some of those videos. He's got soul, man. And I
Does.
think people, and not to beat on Nashville too much, but when you're in Texas, you do that. But there's a lot of that sort of factory generated, like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think when you see that you're like, okay, this guy's the real deal. I listened to a guy up here, and speaking of the Texas Panhandle, I got turned on to a country singer named Ryan Colwell, and people kept telling me to listen. I was like, he's just some local guy. He's like my all-time favorite country singer
kidding.
now.
What's his
And
name?
wow, Ryan Colwell. And it's music's good. It's dark. Some of it's a little rocky. But man, is it good, and it's soulful, and it's the real deal. And so anybody wanting someone to listen to, try out Ryan Colwell. Comanche Moon's a good friend of mine. It's from up here. Some good country music. So there's a lot of good Texas country, and so I try to stay off the mainstream stuff. Although there's some good
Yeah,
country.
Yeah, there's actually some decent. Like I like Zach Bryan. I guess is considered mainstream.
Yeah.
He's pretty solid.
Zach Bryan's good, but he didn't sound mainstream, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
he
that's
sounds
true.
like
Good point.
just
Good point.
yeah. And I don't mean to paint everybody in with that broad brush, but I
Right.
think even the Nashville guys, some of them
No,
are
we
like,
know what
yeah,
you mean.
that's factory generated, And
Yeah.
so when you hear that good soulful country music, that's how it's supposed to be, and I think that's a lot of fun.
All right, so I'm up.
Yeah.
So my lightning round questions deal with bullies, and
Okay.
I'm hoping that I'm going to give you a line from a movie, and I want you to tell me if you know which bully said this line.
Okay.
So here's the first one, and they're relatively easy.
Okay.
All right. I hope so, Commander, for your sake. The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am.
Star Wars, Darth Vader, man.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I've got an 11-year-old son, man. We just been getting into that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's fresh on my mind.
Number 2. Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Is that Back to the Future?
It is.
Am I right on that?
It's Back to the Future, but what's the bully's name?
The bully is God. I want to say like Buzz or something, but
Close.
what is
Close.
it? Oh man, can you give me a
Close.
hint? I just
Starts with a B.
It starts with a B. Yeah.
They're close.
Biff. Biff.
Yeah.
Biff.
Yeah.
Do
Biff.
you know his
Okay,
last
there we
name?
go.
Do you know his last name?
No.
No, I don't know his last name.
Sean, do you know
Is
Biff's
it
last
Henderson?
name? Biff
I don't know.
Tannen.
Biff
Biff
I know.
I would have never.
That's right.
Hmm.
All right.
Wouldn't
So
remember.
here's my last one. And if you don't get this one, we probably wouldn't be friends. But
Okay.
we do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak.
We're not trained to be merciful. Give me a hint. It's familiar, but just give me a hint.
Sean, do you want to give him a hint?
I'm trying to think of a hint that doesn't give it away.
I know.
know.
My hints like give it away.
Been remade. The movie's been remade. And it had sequels. And now it has a Netflix. Is it Netflix series?
It's a Netflix series.
Is it
2
Netflix?
The
seasons.
young characters grown up. Let me think. I'll tell you what, the guy who said that is also the guy in Rambo First Blood Part 2 that is Sylvester.
Oh, wait. This isn't Karate Kid, right?
Yes.
Johnny.
There were so many giveaways if we said it.
Oh.
I was like,
And we just
anything
watched
else?
Karate Kid.
I couldn't think of anything that wasn't a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
No,
right.
when you were when I was thinking of some like thriller, whatever. So no, I was totally going. But I that sounds so familiar, and so literally, it's so great. I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old. So we're just now, my wife and I are showing them all these movies that we grew up with.
Love
we
it,
just,
right? Do the
that we
same,
just
do the same
watched
thing
that
with
one.
my
So it's
kids.
great. Yeah,
My kids are like 80s movies buffs. Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
know every single movie that we grew up with. It's so
yeah,
fun.
because they were the best back then. They
Yeah,
were the
sure.
best.
But
No,
they
it is
make fun
funny.
of
We'll have to.
they make fun of some.
Well, when you're 13,
Sean, which ones do they? Which ones do they make fun of?
Luke and Noah, I hadn't seen Nighthawks with Stallone and Billy D. Williams for about
Oh my
15
God.
years.
Yeah,
And I loved that movie when I was young, you know. So I watch it with them, and they're just like, "Yeah, that's really not
Stupid.
very well done."
Yeah, there's probably some that don't hold up. I think we've hit a one or two that didn't hold up, and I'm trying to think what they were, but some of them are really fun.
Well,
yeah,
you
the
get
kids.
puberty,
Oh,
you
I
got to do
finally
weird
showed.
science. Yeah.
Weird Science.
Oh, weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some of
That's
these,
more.
it's funny.
I don't know
you
how old are
remember
the
them
kids.
yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. You remember them a certain way, and then you watch them with your kids. You're like, oh, I forgot.
Yeah, exactly.
Language
I
is, or
forgot that was in
some
there.
naked woman walks in, or
Right.
whatever.
That's why I
you know,
liked it
'cause-
when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably watch it over and over again.
Best time for
VCR.
Ridgemont High. Yeah.
All right. So I'm up here. All right. So no Texan can claim to be a true Texan without some football knowledge. So,
Okay. Oh boy,
Here we
y'all
go.
always get me on the football stuff.
well, you know, even if you're not a football fan, you have to know some of this stuff in order to live there.
Yeah.
It's part of your property taxes. All right. So,
Texas.
all right, we'll go easy at the beginning here. So, when was the last time the Cowboys won the Super Bowl?
Well, last time, I don't know, the 90s, I guess, right? Was it-
Yeah, you just got to pick one of those.
Yeah, 95.
So close.
Oh,
What?
96.
Yep.
Okay, I knew it was somewhere in the middle there, but
Yeah.
okay, all right. I
Which
feel
to
pretty
me
good.
sounds like it was like a couple years ago, but 96
I
was
know.
like,
dude,
Yeah,
that's 96 is when I graduated 6th grade.
Yeah,
I
it's
would
Troy
punch-
Aikman. He's still
would
playing,
punch
right?
him in the nuts. 96. I would say I was divorced by 96. All right. Number 2. All right. So what are the Texas Longhorns preseason ranking?
I have no idea.
Come on, Sean. You should be knowing some of this stuff.
Overrated is what it is. Whatever it is, it's called overrated.
Just like lucky number 13.
They're
right?
back. They're back.
Again.
Every year for the last 10 years. They're back. Texas is back.
All right.
Who's number 1? Who's
Their
number 1?
preseason? Yeah.
Georgia.
It's not neither one of your two
Georgia.
colleges.
Who's number 2?
I know Georgia, and then it's like, oh, not Ohio, is it? Or Ohio State?
Michigan, which is
Michigan.
hilarious.
Michigan.
Well,
Okay.
who's number 13, Mike?
Oh, some Indiana
Some, yeah,
College, I don't know.
Preseason
some weird
polls
thing.
might be the dumbest thing ever invented. True story.
Tennessee State.
story. All right, so they're number 11, but we know all that's bogus.
All right, let's
All
get
right.
on with this. Let me get this last one wrong here. And we can
Okay,
move on.
yeah, you're
Google
gonna
it.
get this last one wrong.
Do a delay. Let him Google it. He'll look great.
Well, yeah. So Texas Longhorns have two of the best high school players in 2 years. So they have the Manning kid, right? He was number one college,
Right.
a high school quarterback. And then 2 years previous was Quinn Ewers, who was the number one high school football player. And they're both there now. All right.
Okay.
Who's finishing out their season in the postseason in the playoffs? Which one of those two?
Oh,
I
this
have
is
no
a
idea.
prediction.
And by the way, I went to A&M, right? I went to the rival school. Why are you asking me about UT? I didn't go to that school.
Are they
It's
still
the
playing
rival.
football? Are
point.
they still in the program?
What does A&M have a tradition? Or Don
One or
Bentley.
two, I think. Yeah,
Don Bentley's boy goes to A&M.
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, little Marine, right? Bentley's
Yep,
boy.
he's a Marine.
You're asking for a prediction. I'm going to tell you right now. Quinn Ewers will start over Manning. Manning will not.
Well, he's going to start, but who's finishing the season?
Quinn Ewers will finish the season.
You think
He'll
so?
finish
Yeah.
the season.
Unless he gets hurt. Manning's not ready. That kid's not
No.
ready. If his name was Moore instead of Manning, he would not be the number one rated player in the country. I'm just.
that's
You
probably true.
think he's that overrated?
He's good, but he's not.
He
he's
didn't
not-
really play anybody. He didn't play anybody big in high school. He wasn't like doing the national tours and playing all the top.
Okay,
programs.
I'll give you a bonus question, just to redeem yourself, and you don't have to know
Okay.
football.
Okay.
What is the mascot of Eastern Michigan University?
I don't know. It sounds like something that's like a Wolverine but I probably never heard of it.
No, it's
The
Eagles.
goat.
Eagles.
Goat.
Eagles. Okay.
My son plays for them,
Possum.
so that was a plug for my son.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. Now,
Eastern
now I'll pay
Michigan, there you go.
attention.
Yeah, it's the possum. Yeah.
The Eastern Michigan
Awesome.
Eastern Michigan Eagles. Actually, it used to be oh my gosh, it used to be a Native American tribe name, and I cannot believe I'm drawing a blank on this.
Not the Utes.
And some people complained and had it changed, and the people who were the most pissed off about it
Probably
was
that.
that tribe of Native Americans.
Name on the map.
Hurons. It was
Yeah,
the
they probably thought it was cool.
The
Yeah.
Hurons.
Hurons
Just
loved
like
it
Huron.
because it was their name. It was the Hurons.
Yeah.
It
They
wasn't
were
Redskins or
Warriors.
it was Hurons, and they were so mad, and they're still mad. They don't understand why they stole their name, and it was some person who thought that it was offensive somehow. So,
Yeah.
Since we're talking college mascots, what's Air Force Academy, Mike?
Oh, Falcons, baby.
There you go. There you go. There it is.
what's Rutgers?
Mike's son's at his first year is just starting.
Yeah, he just finished basic training. He's first year cadet. He's fencing for the Air Force Academy, and so he's
Wow.
trying to survive on their schedule is like stupid. Like I can't believe people actually survive going there, but they'd somehow make it.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it's pretty brutal. I had a nephew that he graduated from the Naval Academy a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah. That first year it's not for the faint of heart, is it?
No.
No,
No.
I'm not
Rutgers. What is Rutgers? It's
It's the
pantyhose. or-
hobos. The hobos. The
Rutgers
That's about right.
Streetwalkers.
the Rutgers.
The Skinwalkers.
The Rutgers street urchins. They're called the street urchins.
Not nice. The Scarlet Knights.
Scarlet.
Okay, whatever.
I knew it was 2 words. And I thought it was street urchins. Sorry.
Streetwalkers.
enough
Skinwalkers.
of this silliness.
Anyway.
Enough of this silliness. Back to the reason we're here. Taylor, keep it going, man. We will read all the Garrett Kohl. The more you
Yeah,
write,
keep these
the more
coming,
we'll
man.
read.
Okay.
We're super excited, and we're gonna do our best to make sure everybody reads.
We want to die in the next one. You better put us in
Oh.
there. We want to die.
I'll be a security guard.
Yeah.
Just
Red shirt.
whatever.
Yeah, you're gonna be the bad guys in the next one. How about that?
We want to die.
I'll be a Russian guy in a boat. That's cool.
There you go. All right. Yeah, you got it,
right.
man. You got it.
Albanese. Albanese. Cheers, brother.
Hey, thanks. Hey, guys, thanks for having me on. Thanks for spreading the word. Appreciate it.
Wonderful to see you, buddy.
Gentlemen, another great show, another great hour with you boys
Mm-hmm.
and the outstanding Taylor Moore.
Yeah.
Great guy, great author, and I love Garrett Kohl stories.
Yes.
If
Big
you
fan.
are not reading this series, get on it and watch. If you're not watching the crew reviews,
Get on the crew reviews too.
Get on the crew reviews.
Get on it.
Oh, let's raise a glass.
All right. Woo. Here we go.
Mud in your eye.
Right. And I chipped a tooth for the show. Out.
Hold on, I got to draw something. Sean's going.
Oh shit. Mike's got to go. He's got to go. Okay,
He does.
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Wait. Go ahead. You threw me off. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say I need to pour a drink.
Okay, pour a drink.